matter what, that would be good.
Well, you can start up here if you like, second row. We're never going to make it one row.
Well, this isn't too bad. It's just 5 minutes past, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Pardon me? Why? No, you're just fine. You're just fine.
I mean, back for your autograph. I mean, there's one for your lovely husband as well. Do we each need one? Yes.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Rachel's coming around with the packets. We do have folks listening online. Thanks so much for joining us. You should have received your packet via email, but we will also be showing those on the screen so you can kind of follow along as we go through the different elements that we're going to cover today. We wanted to start by just thanking you for being here, and then I'd like to start with prayer, and then I'd like to just briefly go over my annual letter that you have in there also. It's not a conventional letter, but you can kind of just see an overview. So let's pray together. God, thank you so much for this church body, and thank you so much, God, for your faithfulness to this church family throughout the decades. When we look back and we see that you have been so good to us, you have been so faithful in how you have guided and led us, how you provided for us, how you have enabled us to be a beacon of hope and outreach to our community. And God, we don't want any of those things to change. We want to remain faithful to you as well. So we ask now that you would be with us as we go through this business of the church, as we kind of bear down on the nitty-gritty of the finances of those who are leading us. We give this to you once again, as people have given this to you for generations in this church body. And we ask for your blessing. We ask for wisdom, clarity, and guidance. And thank you that we can do that. Thank you that we do not have to rely on our own understanding, but that we can claim your wisdom that you give so freely. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Also, Rachel's coming by with the attendance roster. We do have to do that to make sure that each of you who is here in attendance signs in on that roster. That goes into our ongoing minutes of the years of our annual meetings. Well, I wanted just to briefly point your attention to the 2021 ministry year in review. And traditionally, we write an annual letter that kind of emphasizes something that has happened in the past year or has gone over the ministry. And I did it in this calendar format because it would be easy to look at this year of 2021 as a year when we were for most of the year, without our lead pastor. It would be easy to think that we're kind of treading water or waiting for something else to happen. And I think it's really, really important to look at the ministry that did happen during this year. I think, in my opinion, it's really clear that this church body continues to minister to its members and to the community. There have been so many things that have happened this year, and I'm sure I have left some of them out just because of space constraints. But I want you to be encouraged, as I am, to know that this church family is still vibrant and active and outward focused and actively engaged in ministry in our community, regardless of whether we have had our lead pastor throughout the entire 12 months. So please feel encouraged. Please continue the good work. We are waiting expectantly for who God calls for us, but we do not have to wait inactively while that's happening. So we have a call, just like we talked about this morning, to love this community, to love our neighbors, and we are still called to do that regardless of whether we have a lead pastor in place or not. And obviously very, very thankful for Ansel and his leadership throughout this year as well. So just wanted to, that's my report to you. A thanksgiving for each of you, thanksgiving for the ministry and the mission of this church and how that will continue in this next year. I'd like to bring up Ed Armstrong now, who has been the chairman of our church council for this last year. Yay, yes. And Ed is going to guide us through, I'm not sure, Ed, what are you going to guide us through?
Well, for the next 4 hours, I thought we'd start. Ooh. The first thing I'd like to guide us through is I'd like to have members of the church council stand and be recognized. So there's Jason and they're always in the back. What does that mean? So I really, really appreciate the members of the council. As you know, it's been, I'm not going to use the word unprecedented. I hate that word anymore because we have precedents all over the world and we've seen them in the past. But it has been challenging and it's been fabulous for me to work with a group of council members that meet challenges. And oftentimes the church members don't see the activities behind the scenes, but this group, let me tell you, is pretty marvelous. So I'd like us to recognize them with clapping, if we could. The other three members that I'd really like to pay attention to before we start today is Ansel, Kristen, and Rachel, who again we're understaffed. I would say that, but we're over blessed by these three people, and I know that again they do marvelous work that some of us don't see and others of us don't always appreciate. So thank you for all your service. And as much as I hate to see you go, I feel that we're getting closer and closer all the time because of the pulpit committee. So you and Kathy have been a blessing, and if you enjoy Reedsport, you can always sell Florida and come this way. You're always welcome. So there's two items of business today. The first is you have a ballot for new church council members. Peggy Ladd. Do you want to stand, Peggy, so you can be recognized? I know you brought your 2-hour conversation that you wanted to talk about. Peggy has been a member of our music team for many years and is a valued member of our church community. The other council member who is not, or pre-council member, I should say, who's not here today is Jesse Dean. Jesse's out of town right now, but Jesse has been a member of the Coast Guard and has been a real blessing. I know during Christmas in July, he was just an overachiever. We really appreciated, Ike and I appreciated his work. So I'd ask you to follow your heart and your ballot and endorse these two members that have been willing to step up to a difficult task. So that brings us to the budget. I thought when I got out of the school administration business, I'd finally seen my last budget, but that was not to be so. So let me give you some bigger pictures. If you'd look at the balance sheet first, I don't know if I can bring this up or not, we'll see. The balance sheet, if you could bring that up, is that there? Oh, the next one, okay. Okay, so the good news, unlike a lot of churches across the nation, our church financially is in very, very good shape. I would say that's a celebration. As you can see, our checking account is healthy. Our bank savings account has almost 32,000, well, almost 33,000, and then petty cash. I always hate petty cash, whatever that means. So. The good news is that our accounts are healthy. Let me give you the bigger picture before we go into the next few pages, is that we have underexpended our budget, which is always good news. But on the other side of the world, our tithing is not as stout as I would like to see. So that's something that we want to make clear. And if you want to look, because I was always one to look at the back sheet first, whether it's a good book or whatever. So on the very back sheet, you'll see at the bottom under total expenses, it's 495,000, which you will see our proposed budget was actually, I'm flipping horribly here, excuse me for that. Our budget that we actually had set was 515,000 on that back sheet. So the total projected tithing for 2021 was 456,680.94 cents. And so our actual 9 months, if you look up on that sheet, is 342,510. So the good news, we've under-expended the budget in a number of areas because, obviously we don't have a children's ministry or a children's minister, and then Alan's unexpected leaving us, plus some under-expended categories, so over the big piece. So in October, the Budget Committee met, and they reviewed, and their recommendation to the council, which the council took, was that we would maintain the same budget number that we had last year for this year. So we haven't increased, but we also, as Alan once said, you can't outgive God. We didn't want to reduce the budget in certain areas. So the challenge for the council was to, in their deliberations over the budget, was to balance certain line items. So what I'll do here very briefly, and of course if you have questions, I'm always happy to answer those. I'll go through where we made the changes so that you have an understanding. I would like something. That would be good, something to hold. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Put that down as one of your duties. Okay, great. So, so I'm going to kind of go through the big categories. Oops, go back one. So I can find this. So if you'll notice that the 2021 was 30,000, we reduced that in the 2022 to 26,000, and we did that by reducing the camp program budget. The reason we did that, Lindsay this last year had helped us with the camp, and she has told us for this upcoming year that she simply won't be available. So we felt that, given that unknown, that was a potential place to kind of reduce our spending. Under fellowship, you'll notice that those items remain the same, so unless you have questions, I'll move on past that.
Rather than just the name?
Right here, under this category, under total fellowship, 14,000, 14,000. So we kind of left that alone.
5205.
Yes.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't mention. 5205, so it's
Thank
on
you.
yeah.
So under total missions, moving on, total missions, the last couple of years, we've made a commitment to raise our missions giving to 12%, and that is the number that you see up there of last year was 61,200, and the total missions for next year will be 61,200. The next category under outreach and evangelism, you can see that last year the budget was 9,500. We've reduced that to 5,000. And one of the reasons for that is you can see that under Luma, it was kind of a category that was a repeat. So we reduced the category there. And under 5408, which is a CD ministry, with the online service, we have very few requests anymore for CDs. But we kept some in there because there are a few people that still aren't computer savvy. And so...
Correct, you have satellite internet?
Exactly. Well, and savvy being savvy in your community. Right. So we wanted to keep that in there for people in that situation. Max.
Where do we take for the online ministry? What does that come out of?
Kristen, help me with that. I think that's under technology, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
We've added, on the next page, 5815, we've added a line item that we'll talk about there. Under technology systems, I think it would probably fall under 5815. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. About 2/3 of the way down.
Yeah. Did that answer your question, Max? Okay.
is that enough money to cover it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we're trying to be as realistic as possible. I mean, in our budgeting, rather than kind of throwing out numbers, we've really started to look at our history. I think, at least since I've been on the council, we've really been saying, well, what is the actual cost that we've been deploying that on? So, So under total maintenance, you can see that the 2021 budget was $20,500. We've reduced that to $16,000. The biggest reason it was reduced, and this is basically the rental property and our maintenance savings account. So the rental properties, we've recently this year had them start paying for most of their utilities, if not all of their utilities. So the only thing that we are responsible for now is trash. So they're paying their water and their electricity. We felt that was a good move, and the renters are all fully aware of that. The maintenance savings is what we put aside every month, $500, that goes into our bank account for long-term projects such as a roof or other items that the church needs. And I would say, having attended a number of churches over my 70 years, I have to say that this church is really wise in not letting their superstructure, their maintenance go. So again, I think that's something that we can celebrate from staff. The next one category is under the total senior pastor salary. And before we have a question on this number, I thought I'd bring it out right away. You'll notice that the lead pastor life insurance, we're not paying that much for life insurance. But because Alan kind of caught us unbeknownst that he was going to be leaving. So we needed a place to put the NCS services, and so that's just where we budgeted at. So even though it looks tremendously overpriced, I did want to get ahead of the group and let you know what that was about. So this includes Ansel and Kathy's housing, the NCS assessment, and of course paying for our wonderful Ansel to be here. So that's that cost category. The lead pastor salary under 5701, this is the new item for our new pastor. And again, before kind of anticipate the question, that is not the actual, that is the salary package. So that'll be his housing, his insurance, but we had to put it all in one place because the pastor has the ability to move a little bit of that into different categories depending on his family needs and things like that. So that's the total compensation package for the new pastor. And you can actually see that if you look at the 2021 total senior pastor salary, it's a little higher, but it's not that extraordinarily high.
And there were some other components of Alan's salary that were not included in that number, so it's
Correct.
pretty comparable.
Right, they're comparable is what I wanted to say. Any questions on that? And we wanted to be clear for the new pastor and the pulpit committee, so they had what they needed for resources to talk to the new pastor. Well, what is our compensation going to be? So we kind of did that early, knowing that we needed to have the best foot forward as we could. And I would say the council did quite a little bit of study of salaries across Oregon, and the Oregon coast is pretty thin when it comes to compensation for pastors. So we kind of looked across the entire Oregon landscape, looked at cities that were the size of Reedsport and kind of got an idea. But it was, I'll tell you, they started anywhere from 20,000 to 150,000. It was the weirdest salary schedule I've ever seen for that. Any questions on that category? Okay. Under the associate pastor, we maintained Kristen at this compensation level, some of it by her request, but the council, as you'll see in the next page, wanted some type of recognition of Kristen's greatness, if I could use a better word. So I'll show you where we chose to kind of recognize Kristen's good work in the church. We still have youth pastor salary. As you know, we don't have a youth pastor at this time, and certainly that's where we saved a lot of money this year. As you can see, we've only expended $3,000 in that category. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a youth pastor. It means that we want the lead pastor to be here so they can be part of that process and hire. So a couple of new categories, and this on 5781, this is where we thought we could really recognize Kristen. Kristen, as you know, loves to teach. She loves to learn, and so we put in a $2,000 line item that will allow Kristen to look at a variety of avenues to grow, whether that's going to a conference, whether that's going to online classes, for whatever educational piece that she needs. One of the things that, and I think this goes back to your question a little bit, Max, on we've grown in technology in the church, and it's been one of those added jobs that we've thrown at staff, and so we've placed in our budget a digital media director who will actually take care of those items like the website and digital No, we took that away from Kristen, and I have to say she didn't fight it. So we have offered, yes, we have offered, and I believe it's been accepted that Katie Lockhart is going to fill that role. She's been kind of already doing it for yay. So again, recognizing people's work, I think, is very important. So let me look at line items here. We kept the 5789 children ministry director at the same. The nursery babysitting, we bumped that up $500. The counseling services that we get are going to go up just a little bit to $19,000. The lead pastor health dental savings, that was something that Alan had actually used, and we don't know if the new pastor is going to have that need, so we kind of just dropped that out of the matrix for right now. Lead pastor auto was $3,600. We left the $3,000 for $57.94 for conferences and education for the lead pastor. The associate pastor's auto, $2,600, so you can get gas for your Kia or something there. Youth pastor, when we hired that position at $2,000 for their auto, under $57.96. The secretary, again, Rachel has done just an amazing job. I can't, she seems to always be here, but we chastised her for keeping her hours as consistent as possible. And that line item, again, continues to be $26,000. The maintenance position, Scott, I should have mentioned Scott earlier. He's been a huge asset so that Rachel and Kristen and Ansel don't have to sweep the floors as so we actually have a maintenance position again, which is wonderful. We kept that at the same, $15,000. And then, of course, the wage-related taxes, which we don't have much choice on there anyway, so that remained the same. So that category of total personnel, as you can see, the budget was $90,950. The year-to-date, we've spent $48,524. And the proposal for the 2022 year is $95,700 because of the items that we added up above. The $2,000 for Kristen and the digital media director of $6,000. So the rest of this, of the 5,800s, 5,900, is basically church operational situations like our utilities, telephone, internet, building insurance, accounting services, technology systems. We actually didn't have any money in technology systems, so we created a budget, and those are items that if we need to replace something or buy a mic, or if Wes comes up with a brilliant new idea, he has a little bit of a budget that we don't have to go into contingency, if you would, to pay for that. The only other thing that I would point out on this is 5,900, the Contingency Fund, and we reduced that to 11,100. And quite honestly, sometimes things come up, we know that, but I have to say one of the things, and this is not anybody's fault, it's not a negative, but we would sometimes plan an expense and then pay for it out of contingency. Well, that's not a contingency. If you know that you're gonna buy something or spend something, that's not a contingency. So we felt that when we really looked at that line item realistically, the items that we've been spending on are line up more closely to $10,000 to $12,000. So that's why there was a reduction there. So the only other thing I might mention, I'm sorry, go ahead.
$58.99, the special projects, that's kind of where we were going to change those planned items.
Yes, $58.99 will actually be where we fund, that's the number we'll actually fund out of planned improvements. And I actually was going to mention the plan. That's okay, you're fine, Kristen. No apology. So the couple of the planned items, in fact, Fred Dixon and I were just looking at the two doors today on the exterior. If you notice when you come in, those are pretty bad shape. They're not really exterior doors. So that'll be one of the things that we will work on probably maybe even before the end of the year, but certainly before the end of the winter season, get those kind of replaced, not just fixed, but replaced. And then the downstairs carpeting, we are looking at carpet tile, and I'm colorblind, so you'll be glad to know I'm not picking out the color tile. I'm not on the color tile committee. But we will be upgrading that. And again, I would compliment over the years, not just the group that is sitting here or the ones that are online, but the thoughtful planning and maintenance that this building has had over very many years. So those, I did want to mention those items, that those are going to be budgeted for and will be happening. So I would field any questions that you might have. Hopefully that explained the budget. I try not to spend the 4 hours talking about budget. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Mike.
This maybe doesn't have anything to do with anything, but sometime back, Pastor Allen was able to take a sabbatical. And we had always planned for Kristen to do the same. And obviously we're in a situation right now, but have you been able to talk about that? And is there anything we can do for Kristen in the interim, over and above, because she's over and above?
You mean more than her laundry?
I brought her tomatoes. Is that okay? I mean, I don't know what. It was lovely tomatoes. They were, and you had apples too, I understand. I agree, Mike. I mean, it's she was actually ready to take her sabbatical a couple of years ago, and then COVID hit the fan, if I could. So that kind of destroyed that piece. But we recognize that, and I think one of the ways we've recognized that overburden is by the digital media director, trying to actually asking Kristen to start to look at what she loves to do and what she doesn't, call to her. And so we've actually started the process, Kristen has started the process of actually rewriting the new job description of Kristen, and that'll be put out to the congregation so you have a better sense. So, but the sabbatical is still on the table when Kristen says, I'm ready to pull the trigger on that. Absolutely. That tomorrow. I've already booked the sabbatical for you. You're good to go. I understand they're giving free tomatoes. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah. Well, and I don't know what to tell you. You don't mind. You just, Donna, did you have trouble with her as a child, minding? She did everything you said. Would you listen to your mother? Thank you. Okay. We're going to give that over to Donna, Mike. Yeah, so it'll be taken care of. That's right. Let's not mess around. Okay, well, I was going to have a joke, but Kristen took all my jokes for Halloween, so I'm sorry. So I'll give it back to you. How's that? I think we're done, unless you've got other items to do.
Yes, thank you. One thing that Ed didn't mention is that he is stepping down as our council chair, and that the position that Jesse has been nominated to fill is actually the remainder of Ed's council term. So I would like to take this opportunity just to really thank Ed for his leadership during a very difficult period of time. Yeah, that's kind of, does anyone have any other questions that you'd like to raise before we fill out our ballots?
Do you know how much we love you?
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, I love you too, so much, more than you know. All right, then let's go ahead, fill out our ballots. It's just a yes vote, and so if you abstain, then you just don't fill in the yes category. For each of our council members, for Peggy Ladd and for Jesse Dean, Peggy's is a 3-year term, Jesse's is the continuation, just a 1-year term, and then for the ratification of the budget for next year. And then Rachel is collecting those. If you'd like to stick around for the count, you're welcome to do that, but otherwise we're done. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for attending.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was cute. I like it. I like your eel. That was great.
Did you not listen to the sermon this morning yet?
And I know I forgot things.
You got everybody?
And I have to wait until we get a lead pastor. So I had one out actually 2 years ago. And that's when Mom and the girls and I were going to take our sis trip also. As part, part of it. So,
No more things next week.